Welcome back, everyone, to Talent Skill Tree, episode 10. I am excited here because I actually have a fellow colleague who was actually my previous manager and director, Everett. Hey. Welcome to the show. How's it going today?
It's going well. Thanks for asking. How about yourself?
Good. I always love your background. I feel like I'm talking to a professor in college.
Got the mahogany and leather-bound books.
Right. I love it though. I dig it. And I see some of the Blizzard stuff there.
Yeah.
Well, Everett's actually a franchise director for my old team, which is Overwatch 2. Well, now I'm on the unannounced team, but I wanted to bring Everett on the show because with his background, he is a thought leader. He is a professional as a recruiting manager and went to director. And actually, he has an interesting path for a lot of people out there who kind of worked his way into gaming. Because I know that a lot of people ask, is there a specific way to get into gaming? And as you guys realize, there isn't. Everyone has different paths. And Everett, can you share your story, how you got into where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually been around recruiting since 1998. My dad kind of fell into it after he sold some video stores in the 90s. And at the age of 12, I actually found myself at my dad's agency sourcing for roles that he worked on. At one point, I was sourcing on a CFO. It was like one of the first roles I ever worked on. 12 years old, my dad's just trying to appease me, essentially. I go out, I basically send him a couple of candidates, submit it to him, and he's just essentially trying to keep me busy, right? Keep me entertained. And ends up calling one of these candidates. And it turns out that this candidate was actually the best friend of the CEO for the company that we were working for, and had actually literally like married the CEO at his wedding. They were best friends, had fallen out of touch. And so this guy ended up getting an offer. Some stuff happened, ends up falling through. But at that point, I was essentially hooked. Like I knew at 12 years old, I was going to do recruiting in some sort of way or fashion. And fast forward, I graduated high school, started my time off in college, and ended up working at Tmobile. And I think one of the reasons why that was actually beneficial for me and kind of my recruiting career was that it really taught me how to sell. And teaching recruiters how to sell is something I don't think necessarily happens in all the because you're selling opportunities, you're selling teams, you're selling the job, you're selling the offer. So it's really a job. Not only is there people aspect, there really is a large sales aspect to it. For, having success at Tmobile and kind of proving that I could do that there. My father actually said I could come work for him. And so I joined his company, did 3 years and retained search. And so we were doing mostly renewable power, and that was fun, did that for a while, but I really wanted to have a little bit of more ownership on the client side. So I essentially was a sourcer, you could say, for 3 years. And I found myself here in an agency in Austin. And I did that for about a year. I was doing engineering, and tech was really starting to come more on the scene. I mean, tech had obviously been around for a while, but it was becoming more popular. And so I kind of lucked into that segment. And from there, I actually got recruited by Indeed. And so left the agency. I went to Indeed, and it was really exciting. That was the best times of my professional career. I joined Indeed when there were about 200 people in Austin, about 800 globally. And by the time I left Indeed, we were at about 12,000. The company grew like 14x while I was there, and being able to see the company from its really small origin all the way through to where it was when I left was extremely exciting. And it really taught me to work in a lot of different ways, because the way that the company changed over time, you really had to adjust and be adaptable. And I would almost say like I worked for 4 companies within one at Indeed. And then as it just so happened, one of my really good friends from childhood was working at an agency for Blizzard and had the role that I currently am in, and actually approached me about it. And it was just really good timing. There were some things changing at Indeed at the time, and being a massive Diablo fan since the 90s and loving Overwatch and really just anything Blizzard in general, it was a no-brainer to try to go down that path. And then fast forward, it's probably been 14 months now. Here I am every minute of it.
Yeah, that's such a great story. I love how you constantly just kind of leveled up. And in this gaming industry, or not only the gaming industry, but just the industry in general, it's just so hard to stay motivated in this job market that we're experiencing right now. There's massive layoffs. There are just so many different factors that kind of deflate people from applying and keep leveling up. And so we preach that all the time, to keep leveling up. How do you stay motivated? How did you kind of become successful in keep leveling up? Because some people do get complacent, and where you're at now, it's like amazing.
Well, thank you. I think for me, I'm very competitive. And so at a certain point, with my time at Indeed, I felt like I'd kind of reached where I could reach and kind of proven what I was able to prove as an individual contributor, right? Like I know I can be successful. Other people know I can be successful, but can I make other people be successful? And as I manage, and I think in the way that I attacked problems was always, about, nothing was ever below me or something. I wanted to help people be successful. I wanted to show them how to do it and telling them how to do it and saying, hey, you can do this. Like I also wanted to be able to prove, like, if you call me out on it, like I'm going to be able to show you, right? So I think leading by example is really important, but to stay motivated, constantly challenging yourself for new things. And I had success in tech, out of the people I'd done that, but I hadn't done gaming. And so, being able to move into a new industry and keep, learning and keep myself kind of on my toes, I think is important, because you don't want to get complacent. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where, you think you know everything or you think you can do everything, because then you start to really hinder your growth. I want to continue to grow and continue learning. So I'm always looking for those types of opportunities.
Always continue to learn and continue to grow. That was the one piece of advice that I've actually kind of remember what you told me too as well. When I first started, you were like, be a sponge, just learn as much as you can. And I know that's kind of a cliche and it's probably an old advice, but be a sponge definitely works, I think, in any industry, whether it's gaming or not. But let's talk about, since you're in a leadership position and you mentioned, your path into leadership, where you actually started off as an individual contributor. What successes have you seen since you have managed teams before, and Indeed, and other big companies? What successes have you seen that kind of mirrors as far as successful employees or successful counterparts that you've seen?
To be successful within recruiting, I think there's a couple of things. The activity is going to create reactivity. Recruiting is a numbers game at the end of the day. And I'm not saying throw stuff against the wall and hope it sticks. But there is a certain element of being a number game. And so, having kind of that middle ground of knowing how to actually go out and pursue people in a way that's meaningful and thoughtful and shows that you've spent time actually pursuing them. And then on the flip side, but making sure that you're able to do that in enough ways and with enough people, is really what's going to help you be successful. So a lot of people will kind of sit around and wait for things to happen. And they're not necessarily thinking 3, 6, 9, 12 months, ahead of the things. And recruiters, I think, that are successful, and ones that are thinking like that. You talk to a great candidate today, they're not interested, but maybe they mentioned that their game's launching in 6 months. It's like, did you make an appointment for them in 6 months? Are they on your calendar? Like, do you have any kind of reminder? And it's small things like that, but it's the people that pay really close attention to detail, and that are thinking more long term, and I think are the ones that being successful in all the places that
is exactly. I love that you mentioned a couple of different things as far as because you're a data guy, and we talked before. Yes. We talked before on the show here how you love data, and I think Cadence is spot on. What you said, it's no one size fits all. And with Cadence, I learned from Cadence from previous managers and mentorships. Speaking of mentorships, have you had what's the story you can share about your mentor or mentors, in the industry?
Yeah, I think, my father was definitely, a big mentor for me for years, and still is. I still call him with questions and things like that. He's a VP in recruiting at a large energy company. But then outside of him, and kind of within the industry that I was in, one of my old directors at Indeed was really fantastic. I mean, she taught me the way that I should be looking at things, the way that I should take feedback, the way that I should act on that feedback, and really helped me grow quite a bit in the short period of time that she was managing me. And I do kind of contribute a lot of the growth that I had to that time period, because I learned some good lessons from her, and just in ways and how I respond and how I think before I respond. It played a pretty big part in how I work today, and the way that she led by example and was really a leader who would jump in and do things. If you had needed help, she was going to show you, she was going to help you, she was going to make sure you got through it. And so I try to do that for people that I have today, give them the opportunities to be successful and make mistakes. And then when they do make a mistake, that's totally fine, as long as they're open and willing to feedback and learning how to grow from that. Like, I want you to make mistakes, I want you to grow, because if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not really trying anything or doing too much, right? Like, you got to get out there and take some risks sometimes. And I think she allowed me to do that. And so I would say that she was probably the biggest impact for me, like from my mentors.
Taking risk and just learning from your mistakes. Yeah. I think we all can learn from that too, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
And when you work in the gaming industry, I think that really resonates with a lot of people is
Yes.
when they are afraid to jump in the game industry, or they're afraid they're going to make mistakes, or do imposter syndrome. That's one of the key things that I get to talk about all the time with candidates looking. And so what advice would you give to someone who's just starting in the gaming industry, or who's actually transitioning into the gaming industry?
Come in with an open mind. I would say, it's okay not to know everything. You don't have to be an expert coming into something. The core skills that you have, coming in is the reason why they brought you in. A lot of the other stuff, that's all learnable, right? Like, you're going to pick it up, you're going to understand it over time. And so it's okay to tell people, hey, I'm not necessarily sure on that. Let me check with one of my colleagues and get back to you, or whatever you have to say. But it's okay to to not be an expert right away. And even a lot of people, I would say, even do this with new jobs, right? Like, you don't have to necessarily know what you're doing the second you get into it. But if you're a smart person and you have experience within that, that vocation, like, you're going to pick things up and you're going to figure it out. And hopefully you have yourself surrounded with good people that you can turn to help you figure out those things if and when you don't.
Yeah. It's perfect. Spot on. We talked about another thing here too, if you don't mind me talking about this too, but I think it's a great inspirational story. You have a wonderful family, and you do a lot of side projects, right? You coach, and you not only work in the gaming industry, but how do you handle work-life balance? That is the other big question that I get a lot. Honestly, is how do you handle work-life balance? I'm sure in the gaming industry, you're expected to go 0 to 60. And how do you handle everything, right? You're a leader, you have a family, you have football. There's so many things going on.
I think one thing that I learned at my time at Indeed, when we were just an absolutely insane, crazy phase, was work is always going to be there. And there's always going to be more work. You can kill yourself the entire day and work from your early mornings to late night and still have more work to do, and you're always behind. Or you can work really hard, be really focused, and make sure that you're doing what you need to do in the time frame that you set, and say, like, okay, from 8 to 5, I'm going to be super focused. I'm going to block my time. I'm going to work on the X amount of things. And if you do that, then I feel like you can leave at 5, whatever time you set, and feel good about the rest of the night. Like, hey, I did the time today. I worked really hard, but now I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to go take care of my family. I'm going to do the things that I need to do so that I can come back tomorrow and give that same 100% or 110% that I gave today, to make sure that I continue my success and continue the success for my position. And I'm not saying, turn off your phone at 5 o'clock if that's the time you be available and be able to take calls. And if you're putting in the work, you don't want to like lose a deal because you weren't available at 6. Set some boundaries with yourself. Figure out what makes sense for you. So that's 40 hours, 50 hours, 6 hours, whatever works for you. Set that boundary and try to stick to it.
Yeah, setting boundaries is very healthy. Find that way to be professional about it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
People are afraid to say no. I think that is a big misconception. It's okay to say no.
It really is. People are afraid to do that. Yeah.
Give us an example of, like, if I were to say, I need you to do this and give it to me by 6, even though you're clocking out by 5, like, what is a polite way of saying, Justin, go kick rocks?
It really depends on the situation and the manager, right? Like, each person is going to respond differently and in different ways. You set those expectations kind of from the beginning, and the other people that you work with are aware of those expectations. And it would be easier to have that conversation. If it's something that is unexpected that you're going to be bringing up, there's a way to come with like a solution, like, hey, maybe I'm not able to get it done by 5, but can I get it done by 6 or 7 in the morning, or whatever you wake up and you think you get it done. Like, maybe give them another option of when you can do it before, or whatever works for you. But it's okay to say no, like you said. I think that's actually a really important piece of advice, right? Like, I don't know and no are 2 acceptable answers, I think, for different things.
Yeah, 2 perfectly example answers here. I'm having a good time here, and I always like to end this show. I like to keep the short and sweet and hit those high nuggets, which I think you did an excellent job. So 2 last questions here for you, if you don't mind.
Shoot.
One, I love talking about games. So what is your favorite game that you're currently playing now, and what are you looking forward to the most?
Okay.
And then the last question is a little bit more harder. What's one piece of advice that always stuck with you in your career that you can share with our listeners here?
Okay, I'll attack these in 2 different ways. So first question, favorite game right now? Well, that's Diablo 4. No brainer there for me. Been like a big Diablo fan since the 90s. That probably actually the first like real computer game that I played, like on the PC. That was really what kind of stuck with me through all my years. I was always looking for games that were like Diablo and was never really satisfied with the games that I found. Now coming full circle and working on D4, it's wild to complete that and see it now that it's out. So that's been a lot of fun to play. And then what I'm looking forward to with that would be season 1. So I'm interested to see what they add for that and what updates they make. And I think that'll be pretty fun to be a part of.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to season 1 too. As far as what level are you on Diablo right now?
Like 90 right now.
Oh wow. Okay, you're putting me to shame. And then so the final question is one piece of advice or what was given to you that has stuck with you throughout your career journey.
Let me think about this for 1 second. What's the best advice I've gotten? Okay, I actually got one. So when I first got into to retain search, we were doing searches for CFOs, CEOs, pretty high level roles. And something my dad actually told me, because I was like nervous to talk to, some of these people. He's like, it doesn't matter if they're a CFO or a senior engineer or lead game developer or whatever it may be. Like they're all working to feed their families or to feed themselves, and they're just people, right? And he's like, if you're successful in this career and you do this job well, you'll probably make as much as money as a lot of these people. So don't think of them as something that's like way above you or to treat real different. Like treat them, as someone else that you respect and someone that's kind of on that same level, because you don't want to like put people on a pedestal. Essentially, is kind of what he told me. And so I think for me, I know that maybe that sounds funny or something, but for me, it always made it really easy for me to have conversations with people that I work for that were at the VP or SVP level, and never really treated them different in the sense of I was never afraid to ask them questions or afraid to push back on things. And I think that allowed me to be successful because I was afraid to, or I was not afraid to push back, and I wasn't afraid to say no. And I think that can be, the difference of somebody that's going to be good and somebody that's going to be great. Because if you have somebody that's good but is afraid to make those hard or have those hard conversations with people that they're working for or with, then they might find themselves in situations down the road where they're digging themselves out of something, or they have to backtrack and have the confidence in yourself and what you're doing. And I think other people will see that confidence and see you as a thought leader and an expert if that's what you're putting off, right? Just keeping in mind that everybody's a person, everybody's kind of like me, and not really caring who they are in terms of title and level, but always treating everybody with respect and treating everybody with consideration and making sure that they're always just being the best you that you can be. I think you're going to find yourself not getting yourself in trouble essentially with that kind of thought process and mindset.
Treating everyone on the same level as you would talk to anyone. I mean, you said it's tiny, but no, that resonates with a lot of people. That infinity right there of just treating everyone with the same level. And I think just getting over that curve, that initial curve of, hey, it's okay, I can talk to these people, or it's okay if I'm open to these people.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 nuggets that I took away. I don't know about you guys in the audience there, but I thought that was very profound that we could definitely use to level up in our careers. And so be mindful of your time here, Everett. But again, I wanted to bring you on the show because I really do feel like that people will find value in if they want to become into a leadership role. And I think they could find value in your career progression. As we've seen, is kind of like a trend right now. Like you don't have to be in one cookie cutter setting to get where you're at. Everett right there shows it, coming from Tmobile to Indeed to now Blizzard. Amazing journey.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
So going back to the good advice real fast, I do have one more bit of information that was told to me that I think is been one of the best pieces of advice I've actually ever had, which was you'll never go wrong hiring great people. If you have great people on your team's going to be great. They're going to make you look great. They're going to make themselves look great. And it's a win-win for everybody. So never be afraid to hire somebody that maybe has more knowledge than you, maybe, stronger in a certain area. Like that should never be a deterrent. That should be, I want this person on my team because they're going to help me grow and they're going to help me be better. And so that's something I think that has also helped me. It's definitely benefited my career. So
another great nugget. I actually like that too, because you don't ever want to be too humble where you think you're the smartest person in the room.
Exactly. And I don't want to be, I never want to be the smartest person. If I'm the smartest person in the room, then I need to leave and go to another room.
Go find another room. Yeah. Kind of funny. I actually wrote a blog post about that a couple of weeks ago. But no, that's a true saying. Go find another room and be humble enough that you're always learning and can learn from your peers or subordinates. Whatever the case may be.
Absolutely.
But again, great nuggets here. I think everyone can relate to it. I'll drop your LinkedIn profile below.
Okay.
So that way people can see your progression and journey. And again, we're just regular people, everyone. You know what I mean? We just fell into gaming, and hopefully everyone can fall into gaming too. As I always like to say, let's level up together. So Everett, thanks again for being on the
absolutely.
show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And it's been a great talk here, everyone. Thanks
This
again.
has been fun. Thanks.